Well, Razorback fans, I haven't had a chance to talk about this, so it may be a little past, but I think it's important during the bye week. Why does the Slobbering Hog mean so much to people? Well, let's talk about it in today's Locked On Razorbacks podcast.
You are Locked On Razorbacks, your daily podcast on the Arkansas Razorbacks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. I am your host, John Neighbors. I am also the host of Inside Arkansas Live, which you can catch every weekday starting at noon on Inside Arkansas and InsideArkansas.com. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Hope everybody's having a wonderful Friday as we have made it officially to the bye week. And it's kind of nice, to be able to take a little bit of a break, get to watch nothing but other people's college football games on Saturday as the Razorbacks will gear up for LSU coming up next Saturday. So it should be a lot of fun, should be pretty crazy, and should be, it'll be something, folks. It'll be something. But I wanted to dive into this, and I know that a lot of you have probably already talked about this or you think it's kind of old or whatever, but I had some technical difficulties yesterday, so I didn't get a chance to do the podcast to start the morning, so I apologize about that. But either way, those of you who don't know, this is officially happening. Right there, you see it on the screen. It is the Slobbering Hog, the Slobbering Hog, whatever you want to call it, the hog that slobbers, is officially going back on the Bud Walton Arena's court. There's been pictures of it. You can also see a Tyson Chicken logo as well as a Walmart logo. Gee, didn't know those companies were in Arkansas. But yeah, that's officially there. It's officially done. It's officially happening. It only took, 10, 15 years to happen? But it's done. So it was funny because I was really excited about this. And I had been one of those people that had been calling for this for quite some time. But I got hit up by quite a few of my friends over in the other Locked On podcast networks, schools, as well as some other people in the media. And they were just like, why is this a thing? Why is this a big deal? Who cares? It's a logo. And it's not even the official logo. Like, why does this matter so much to Razorback fans? And I laughed about it because I was like, to the outsider's perspective, I'm sure it is something that people look at and they're like, that's weird. Because if you really step back from it, it is just a logo. And it is just something that's on the court at Bud Walton Arena. It's not anything, that will change as far as the play on the court. It doesn't lead to any more wins per se. And it's mainly just something that the fans want. I don't think any players or former players or anybody were clamoring for it as much, maybe a few. But honestly, it's just a logo on a court. And Razorback fans made a huge deal out of this. Now, I'm going to talk about this specific thing, but I'm also going to look at it from a broader perspective on dealing with this whole deal of why this matters and why it's such a big deal. First off, this specifically is a big deal because Razorback fans, more than anybody, love things that don't get changed for the sake of changing. I think a lot of people are like that, but overall, the Razorback fans are probably more so like that than anybody. There's nothing wrong with changing and adjusting things, but there is something wrong with it if you do it just for the sake of doing it. If you do it just because you want to, or because you feel like you have to, for reasons that you won't tell anybody, but it also kind of goes into, okay, if you're changing it, you have to have a reason why. And that's what the Slobbering Hog was. Slobbering Hog had been on that court, and it was on Barnhill, it was on Bud Walton. If you go back and you watch highlights of Razorback games from old, you saw the Slobbering Hog there on the middle of the court. And honestly, it was the only thing that really remained consistent for Razorback basketball since the Eddie Sutton era. You had the Slobbering Hog right there on the court. You changed venues. You went from Barnhill to Bud Walton. You changed coaches. You changed players. You changed philosophies. You changed athletic directors. I mean, everything's changed. But the one big constant that made it through all of those years was the Slobbering Hog. And when it was decided by the previous administration here at Arkansas to remove it, people were like, well, hold on. Why are you removing this? What's the point? Like, what's that going to do? What's the point of you removing it? It's one thing if there's a reason, like, and so to go through all that work and to go through all that time, you have to have a reason. So what's your reason? And the reason that was given was branding. What? Branding. Branding? Branding. I understand a lot of things that people may not look at in the lens of when you come in as an athletic department or as a business, whatever it is. When you're trying to figure out what's the best way to monetize and to make money in your university, because whether you like it to, when you want it or not, the athletic departments are about making money. It's a business. It's a very lucrative business. And at the end of the day, everyone's trying to make the most money that they possibly can. So even though there may be some things that change that you may not like, here's a great example. Like when, Baum used to just be called Baum Stadium, but then became Baum Walker Stadium. Now, were there people upset by it? Maybe a little bit, but at the end of the day, you're like, well, does it mean more money? Yeah, it does. Okay, well, then here we go. Now it's called Baum Walker. So I understand things like that. But there was no direct deal with saying, okay, well, by changing the Slobbering Hog, we got to make it the actual logo because of branding. Because correct me if I'm wrong, but I have a hard time believing that anyone turned on the TV to watch a Razorback basketball game, and when they looked at the court, they're like, wait a minute, who is this team that's playing? Who is this imposter? No. I don't know who this is. This can't be the Arkansas Razorbacks. That's a Slobbering Hog. No. This doesn't add up at all. Nobody was doing that. Nobody. If they turned on the TV and they saw that logo, they're like, oh, yeah, it's the Razorbacks. It's Arkansas. It's not like it was so vastly different from the actual logo itself. It was just a little bit different, a little bit of a change, a little bit something that's unique. And what it kind of represented, and this is really what I think it represents in a grander scheme of everybody's feelings towards this particular deal, was that the change represented going from, we don't care about your traditions, we don't care about what you've been doing, all we care about is corporate. We care about streamline. We care about it's like the new and improved thing comes in and they change everything. Which again, some change is good, some change is positive. Whether you like it or not, it makes sense. But it kind of represented the old guard going out and the new guard coming in and just wanting to change things because, I got to make a statement, I got to do this stuff, so we got to change it. There was zero reason to change the Slobbering Hog. There's reasons to change other things, but that was one of the things where there was no reason, and no fan wanted it changed at all. Nobody said, we got to get that Slobbering Hog off the court. But no one cared in the administration. They only cared about themselves. They only cared about their own branding. It was never a good move. It has continued to not be a good move. And the longer it's gone on that court, the more it's just been ludicrous why it's taken so long. And then you had, I guess, a couple years ago where they did finally name the court after Nolan Richardson, and everyone was thinking that, when they redo the court, they're going to put the Slobbering Hog. Well, they did, but they did it next to Nolan's name, not actually on the middle of the court. So everyone's like, what are we doing here? This is one of the easiest slam dunks you could ever have. Well, then Yurchek did his thing, and I'll give him credit. He's the one that put the Slobbering Hog back. I think a bigger reason was because of the Tyson Foods and the Walmart deal being on there because they had to put it up anyways. My point is, it was just such an easy thing for the fans. It was an easy win for the fans. It's not going to, cost you extra money to put that logo on instead of the other logo. It's not going to cost you any sponsorship. It's not going to cost you anything other than just your time and just owning it. And say what you want about Hunter Yurchek. I give him a lot of props where he has a good grasp and a good finger on the fan base of knowing the things that they want and they don't want. And there's a lot of things that fans have wanted for a long time. I mean, other than wins, of course, we all want to win. But, whether it's going from Pepsi to Coke or whether it's going from, certain traditions kind of making their way back, or whether it's uniforms or whether it's the Slobbering Hog. That's something he understands. And I give him applause and I credit him for doing it. But again, I want to make this point, and I want to make it very clear as before we move on. Folks, this is not going to equate to more wins. It's not. But it's just a great reminder for those of you at the University of Arkansas, who I'm sure, I don't know how many of you watch this or listen to it, but it's a great reminder for all of you that, the fans are crazy, and I get it. I deal with them every single day. Fans are insane. And Arkansas fans, a lot of them are extra insane because this is all they got. This is all we got. This is the Razorbacks. But if there's a way that you can appease them, if there's a way that you can just make it happen to where it's a simple request or a simple thing that they like, and the vast majority of them want, don't be resistant to it. Because when you're resistant to something as simple as that, it shows that you don't care about them. You don't care about their vote. You care about their money, but you don't care about them. Whether it's intentional or not, that's the truth. So all I ask is that if there are ever things that you can do as a university, as an athletic department, as a marketing department, in order to just get a small win in front of the Razorback fans, do it. Do it. And let this be a lesson. That Slobbering Hog was taken off the court years ago. 10, 15 years ago, that was taken off the court. And here we are 15 years later. And throughout that entire process, everybody has been wanting it. And it's back. 15 years. Don't change something for the sake of changing it. Appease the fans. Help the fans out. Give them something that brings them joy. And they'll appreciate it. But don't resist things that make this state and this university and this athletic program great. Embrace it. It's going to make you proud one day. I promise you. We will talk a little football because I want to bring up Taylen Green here in just a second. So stay with us here on the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. All right, folks. I got to tell you about one of our new sponsors here on the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. I'm really excited to introduce it. It is ZBiotics. ZBiotics. It's the pre-alcohol probiotic drink and is the world's first genetically engineered probiotic. It was invented by PhD scientists to tackle rough mornings after drinking. And here's how it works. When you drink, which I know all of you do, alcohol gets converted into a toxic byproduct right into the gut. It's this byproduct, not dehydration, that's to blame for your rough next day. Pre-alcohol produces an enzyme to break that byproduct down. And just remember to make ZBiotic your first drink of the night. Drink responsibly, and then you'll feel your best tomorrow. It's very easy to do. You just drink pre-alcohol, then you drink responsibly, pace yourself, hydrate, and make sure you get a good night's sleep. And then the next day tomorrow, you wake up feeling refreshed. It's as simple as that. So go to zbiotics.com/lockedoncollege to learn more and get 15% off your first order when you use code LOCKEDONCollege at checkout. ZBiotics is backed with a 100% money-back guarantee, so you'll be satisfied. So if you're unsatisfied for any reason, they'll refund your money. No questions asked. Remember to head to zbiotics.com/lockedoncollege and use promo code LOCKEDONCollege for checkout for 15% off with ZBiotics. I also want to give a shout out, of course, to FanDuel here on Locked On Razorbacks. We know that all of you are going really strong throughout the season, and this weekend there's a lot of games going on, and it's not the Razorbacks, so you may want to start betting a little bit of money. We'll do it with FanDuel. It's America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more at the same place you place your bets. And you can get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. It's FanDuel.com, America's #1 sportsbook. That's FanDuel.com. All right, so moving on into the next segment of the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. Sorry, folks, my neck is killing me, and so I'm just feel like I'm popping it the whole time. Happens. Either way, I wanted to bring this up too about Taylen Green and the health situation that he finds himself in. I had somebody come up to me and was asking about, Taylen Green, he struggled this year. Why not give Malachi Singleton a chance? Da-da-da-da. And I was like, okay. Why? I'd like to know the reasons why. Without just saying because. Like, just give me a reason why. And they're like, well, Taylen Green's not been very good this year. And I'm sorry, folks. Like, I'm going to disagree. Has Taylen Green been perfect? No. Definitely not been perfect. But has it been bad? No. He's had some rough games here and there. But bad? No. In fact, I could even make the argument that Taylen Green's best game was actually against Tennessee before he got hurt. Now, he didn't have any touchdown passes, but he didn't throw any picks either. But in that particular game, he completed 70% of his passes. 70%, which is extremely high for him. And on top of that, he was also able to get 266 yards. He's only sacked once. So definitely not a bad game. And Malachi Singleton, as much as I like Malachi Singleton, and as much as I appreciate what he did coming into the game, because, man, I couldn't imagine. Game on the line, you got to lead the game-winning drive. You got to do that. In that game, he went 2 of 3 for 31 yards. Was only sacked once. But had 4 carries for 12 yards. But my point is like, what do you see from Malachi that you say like, oh yeah, we don't want this from Taylen Green? I see nothing. Taylen Green, with all intents and purposes, it looks like he's going to be healthy enough to play this game against LSU next week. I know he's dealing with that leg injury, which was really bad. Like, it was really scary at the time. But I felt good about it when he was celebrating with the rest of the team when they won. I felt good, even better about it when I saw him doing NIL events this week, which was great. And then I felt extra good about it when I saw Sam Pittman was discussing it on the SEC teleconference about his health and thinks that he's going to be good to go. So all those together, he's going to be your guy. Folks, he's the best chance you have at winning. He's the best chance you have. And it gets really old. It gets really, really old whenever people see a quarterback playing like Taylen Green, and he may have struggles. He may have times where he's not perfect or whatever. And everyone thinks that just replacing him is going to fix all the problems. This isn't the Chad Morris ineptitude of coaching, folks. This is Bobby Petrino. Bobby Petrino, who has coached more great quarterbacks than most coaches have, who has been doing this for a very long time, and has been in this system or on this team with Taylen Green in the spring and in the fall. Spring practice, fall camp, and now. And if he believes that Taylen Green is the best chance they have at winning and being successful, I'm going to go with him and not you if you believe that Taylen Green needs to be benched. And now, if Taylen Green was the reason why you were losing games, I mean, you've only lost 2. And if he was the main and only reason why, I would hear an argument for it. But folks, you look back in that Texas A&M game, for instance. Was Taylen Green great in that game? No. In fact, he played poorly. But wasn't it probably more so to deal with the offensive line getting destroyed, not giving him any time? I think that was a big factor. So this idea that you just replace Taylen Green and boop, problem solved. It's never that easy. And I'd like to know examples of when has that happened to where it just automatically fixed any quarterback issue that you had. I said that the other day, and someone's like, how about when Jalen Hurts was playing with Bama and they bring in Tua Tagovailoa? Worked pretty well then. I was like, man, who got him there? Also, who won the national championship for them? Like, and not only all that, forget all that. That's one example in the history of college football. One example. Like, and any other time you say that, any example that you think of, more than likely it's because it's poor coaching. You're dealing with dumb people. So I just don't understand it. I don't understand why anybody thinks that, why anybody would want that. I don't. You shouldn't. Taylen Green's the best option for Arkansas to win. Guaranteed, hands down, no questions asked. Period. Talk about the Arkansas-Tennessee game, and that being the most watched game? Really? Okay. Well, we'll talk about that here coming up next, so stay with us. All right, all you Razorback fans, I know a lot of you, we were talking about the Slobbering Hog earlier, right? Well, a lot of you are all big about apparel and about really cool apparel and apparel that has the big Razorback logo on it and everything. That's all well and good, but some of you want to have some of that vintage Slobbering Hog apparel. Well, I got you covered with homefieldapparel.com. Homefield Apparel is the place when it comes to anything that you could possibly want when it comes to old vintage logos. They got the hog running through the A. They got the hog leaning on the A. They got the Slobbering Hog. That's right. They got it on shirts. I got one of them upstairs, and it's one of my favorite shirts because it's great material. And they also have a lot of other things to choose from, not just shirts, but they got some hats. They got bomber jackets. They got it all. So you got to check it out today. It's homefieldapparel.com. When you go to homefieldapparel.com, you see all the great Razorback gear that they have. And I promise you won't be disappointed, especially for you vintage people. I'm a big vintage guy. Like, I love those old logos, and they got plenty of them to choose from. So you got to check them out today. Use my promo code PIG24. That's PIG24. Check out all the great apparel that they have, all the great things they got going on with Homefield Apparel. It is homefieldapparel.com. I also want to tell you about Robinhood Gold. With Robinhood Gold, you don't need a silver spoon to eat up the financial favors of the 1%. Robinhood Gold allows others to get the rates and perks usually reserved for the high society. Now, the resourceful individual with Robinhood Gold can earn the very liberal rate of 4.5% APY on uninvested cash, receive unlimited 1% deposit bonuses, and be rewarded with a handsome 3% retirement boost on an IRA account. Robinhood Gold provides the privileges of a high net worth for any net worth. These generous benefits are now available for only $5 a month. The new gold standard is here with Robinhood Gold. Sign up at robinhood.com/gold. That's robinhood.com/gold. Terms apply. For specific disclosures, visit robinhood.com/gold. Investing involves risk. Rate may change. Gold membership is offered by Robinhood Gold, LLC. All right, so final segment here on the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. I know the basketball schedule is going to. We're going to talk about that later today on the Locked On Razorbacks podcast, Pod at the Palace edition. But I wanted to bring this up because Arkansas and Tennessee was the most watched college football game of this past weekend. 5.3 million viewers, and some people wanted to take that a certain way. Razorback fans are like, "Oh man, people love the Razorbacks, love the Hogs. Look at that." Well, listen, I don't doubt that. But I also believe a lot of it had to do with Tennessee because Tennessee's a pretty big fan base too. So, but listen, being on ABC, Kirk Herbstreit, Chris Fowler, 6:30, all those things coming together at once, obviously is a very big deal, and obviously is a boost in what would be the ratings and all that. But it's still incredible to think that a top 5 team coming into Fayetteville against a non-ranked opponent was the number 1 viewed game. And I'm not saying that people are going to just go crazy every time Arkansas plays. But I'd be hard-pressed to think that next weekend, there's a lot of good games. But next weekend, when Arkansas plays LSU at 6:30 on ESPN, it's going to be a very highly viewed game too. A lot of it has to do with LSU. I'm not saying it's just because of Arkansas. But I'm saying there's a draw there. It's the SEC and it's at night. I like crazy miss. I do. I really miss the SEC on CBS. I do. It doesn't seem right that I see Big Ten teams on there. I do miss the... it just meant something different. But I will say the benefit of it all being on ESPN, ABC, and the Disney Network or whatever, the benefit from that is that you get your best games at night, and that's the way God intended. College football needs to be at night. The best of college football atmospheres need to be at night. And that was my only complaint I had about CBS, was that they would make it to where the game of the week was at 2:30 in the afternoon. It was a good time slot, but night games, man, there's just something different about it. Like, look at that Tennessee game this past weekend. That was different. It would not have been the same if it was at 11 a.m. or even 2:30. Like, 2:30 would have been great, but man, there's just something different about night games. It'll be the same thing with LSU. So a lot of people love the games. I think it's great that Arkansas and great that SEC teams are starting to get the night games for their number 1 priority. That's going to help really good too. But good job, Arkansas. Good job, Vols. And let's make it again one of the most watched, if not the most watched game next Saturday when the Hogs and Tigers take on each other. That'll be big. Appreciate everybody listening in to Locked On Razorbacks podcast. Be sure to like and subscribe to the podcast on iTunes or on Google Play. You can also get after me on Twitter at John Neighbors Show for any questions, comments, concerns that you may have, and we'll keep it going from there. Same podcast time, same podcast channel. Tomorrow afternoon. Have a great day, everybody. Actually, next Monday. Have a great weekend. That's all that matters. We'll see you then.